just, you guys should know, he's the Maradasha of Shaarei Tefillah in Lawrence, and he's a Rebbe in YU. He was my Rebbe in YU when I was there a few years ago. Until this day, I'm very grateful for what Rabbi Orlian did for me in many aspects. I learned my first Tosfos. I learned it with Rabbi Orlian, so I'm very, very grateful for everything he's done. So we're very, very excited to have him here. He's gonna give us a bigger sense on, tell us a little bit about what's the experience there and everything. And thank you so much for taking from your very busy schedule to share with us some of your thoughts and everything. So thank you so much for being here.
It's absolutely wonderful to be here. I always wanted to visit Chile, so at least this is my first opportunity to visit Chile virtually. It's a very big kavod, a very big honor to speak and to see my old Talmud, Rabino Bengio, and I'm fortunate to have had a number of my students are Rabbanim in Chile. Rabino Bengio's brother, Michael Bengio, who you probably know, and Rabino Alan Jenny, who's also a student of mine. And I actually remember going back about 10, 12 years when there was a high school group from Chile. Some high school students, I don't know if they were from your Maimonides or Hebrei, I don't know which school it was. One of the schools in Chile came to visit just to see what Yeshiva University was like. And there was a young boy there who was I guess, in 11th grade. And he seemed interested. And eventually he came to my class. And that's Alan Jenny, who I think many of you know from his involvement in Chile. And it's interesting because all of you young men who are on this call are the same age that he was when I first met him, before he even came to Yeshiva University, just wondering what is YU, which is the abbreviation for Yeshiva University. What is it all about? So he came to find out. I guess he liked it and he stayed. And little by little, he enjoyed it more and more, and he grew. He grew in his English, of course, and he grew in his learning Torah. And now he's doing incredible things for the Jewish community in Chile, in Santiago. So it's nice to see. Yaakov Rabbeinu Bengio was actually my first student, my very first student in Yeshiva University. And I'm very proud of where he's gone and what he's accomplished. It's a wonderful honor for me to have been his teacher. And what gave me great, great joy was about a few months ago, he sent me a picture of a piece of paper that he found in his Gemara, that he teaches Gemara. Bengio teaches Gemara right now. And he found a piece of paper in his Gemara from 15 years earlier when he was in my class, one of the sheets that I had given out, either a sheet or a quiz. And he sent me a picture. He said, Rabbi Orlian, does this look familiar? And that made me feel very nice to see that 15 years ago, when I think Rabbi Bengio was not thinking of becoming a rabbi, he was not thinking of teaching, he was thinking of a lot of finance, and he was planning on all kinds of business ideas. And 15 years later, here he is, traveling through the world of Torah and sharing Torah, which is more valuable than all the finance lessons that he learned in YU. So I'm very happy and proud that he learned finance lessons as well as Torah lessons at Yeshiva University. And it's so nice to see him here with you, his students, and all the wonderful people who are joining in today. So thank you all for taking your time and joining us this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Rab. I introduced myself. I spoke with you by chat during the last days. Basically, what we are doing with the yeshiva is trying to know a little bit more about other yeshivas in the world. Last week, we spoke with Aish in Israel. And the idea of trying to build, as I explained to you before, knowing as a parents and also for the kids, knowing what would be the future in terms of option for them, and trying to learn how to make a good decision.
Right.
And in that sense, let me see something. Ana, ponme que se vayan cambiando las caras, por favor, cuando hablemos, por favor. Sorry. And in that sense, Yeshiva University, it seems a good place for people that are not only looking for a Torah place, but also trying to pursue a career. So in that sense, and as I spoke with you this morning, first and try to introduce yourself a little bit so our kids and the parents that are looking and watching, trying to know a little bit about you.
Okay. My name is Uri Orlian. I'm 45 years old. I grew up in Brooklyn. It's a small Jewish village in New York City. And I went to an elementary school, Yeshiva Flatbush. I don't know if any of you heard of it, but it has a very good secular education and a very strong Hebrew language education. And then for high school, I actually went to Yeshiva University High School. Although Yeshiva University is a university and it's a college and they have graduate schools, they also have a Jewish high school, a high school for men and a high school for women. I was at the high school for men, of course, obviously. And I was actually on the basketball team when I was in the high school, and I played basketball. We actually had an elementary school, and in high school I was on the basketball team at that time. And there still is in New York a league of all Jewish schools, and we play one school against the other because there are enough Jewish schools that have basketball teams in New York City that that's possible.
How is the level of the basketball?
The level is not as good as the public school system because the public schools are gigantic and the yeshivas are much smaller. But it was serious. It was serious. We had practice twice a week, and 2 hours a night, 2.5 hours a night for twice a week. And we finished school every day at 6 o'clock, 6:15, and then we had practice from 7 to 9:30, so twice a week. So it was a serious time investment. That's besides basketball games. So that was where I was for high school. And then I spent my 12th grade, instead of going to 12th grade of high school, I went straight to Yeshiva University instead of 12th grade of high school. They don't have that possibility anymore, but there used to be the possibility of skipping 12th grade and going straight to college. So I went to 1 year of Yeshiva University. At that point, I was majoring in economics and in business, actually. I was interested in business and finance. And then I went to learn in Eretz Yisrael. I learned in a yeshiva called Kerem B'Yavneh. Kerem B'Yavneh is a Hesder yeshiva where the Israeli students spend half their time in the army and half their time learning in yeshiva. But the American students just come for a year or for 2 years. I was there for 2 years. And then I went to a small Haredi yeshiva in Yerushalayim called Preshberg, Reb Tzvika Shalevsky. That's a yeshiva in Yerushalayim, in Givat Shaul, right near the Tachana Merkazit, those of you who knew the area. And after about a year there, I came back to Yeshiva University. And by then I had decided that I wasn't interested in focusing just on finance. Now I wanted to focus on the greatest investment of all, and that's the Jewish people. And I decided that I was interested in becoming a rabbi and a teacher, which is what I am now. I'm both a rabbi and a teacher. I finished up Yeshiva University and I had my major in economics. And then I went to learn back in Israel in the Mir Yeshiva, which is right now the largest yeshiva in the world in Yerushalayim. They have 7,000 students there, and I was one of 7,000. That's not so great because anybody could go, which is a beautiful thing, but it's an incredible experience. Then I came back to New York and I spent about 4 or 5 years at the Lakewood Yeshiva. The Lakewood Yeshiva is the biggest yeshiva outside of Israel. They have about 5,000 students, and that's in New Jersey, about an hour and a half away from New York City. And that's where I studied to become a rabbi. And after I got my smicha to become a rabbi, I came back. I went back to Israel a little bit, and then I got married in Israel, and I met my wife in Israel. And then I came back to America, where I became a rabbi at Yeshiva University and a teacher at Yeshiva University. And I've been teaching at Yeshiva University for 15 years. So Rabbi Bengio was my student 15 years ago, maybe 16 now. And I am now the rabbi in a neighborhood called Lawrence, New York, which is a very beautiful area that is about 45 minutes from Manhattan, 45 minutes from Yeshiva University. And I travel every day. I go teach at Yeshiva University in the mornings, and I'm a rabbi in my synagogue the rest of the day. And for the past few months, I didn't have to travel. It's all on Zoom. So I'm fortunate that I don't have to spend 2 hours a day traveling, but most people in my neighborhood usually do travel an hour to work and then an hour home from work. So that's where I am now. And I had the wonderful opportunity of being in a lot of different yeshivas over the years, a lot of different types of yeshivas. Yeshivas that are more Mizrahi, yeshivas that are more Haredi, yeshivas that are more open-minded, yeshivas that are more focused only on Torah, all different kinds of yeshivas. And I took what I hope was, all the best things that I could learn from all the different places that I learned, and I try to transmit to my students and my congregants whatever teachings that I learned and try to pass them forward to the next generation.
So we all the information that we just received, basically, we can do all the shows with you. So we can interview about Mir, we can do about the other yeshivas, just with you.
Sounds good.
Let me ask you something. If in my mind, as I told you, I wasn't born in this world. I basically am a Baal Tshuva, as a 99% of our people in Chile.
As should be 100% of us. We should all be Baalei Teshuvah.
That is true.
We all have to. Everybody has, wherever they are, they all have to keep on growing. It doesn't matter what what it looked like when you were little or when you were big. You always have to keep climbing and climbing and climbing. We're Baalei Teshuvah for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. And in that sense, in my mind, yeshiva and university are two completely different words, right? And we're talking about Yeshiva University.
Yes.
How do you explain and how was built and Yeshiva University? And what would be the goal if there is a definition, a mission, if you will?
That's a great question. So first of all, you're right. For the vast majority of Jewish history, and even now, there was a yeshiva and there was university, and they were never together. What's unique about Yeshiva University is it's one of the few places in the world that has created a situation where the two worlds come together. It is very unique, and it's not what you see in most other places. It has its advantages, and of course it has its disadvantages. But before I speak about any of the advantages of having yeshiva with university and the disadvantages of yeshiva with the university, I'll tell you a little bit about the history. The history of, of YU, Yeshiva University, our yeshiva started about 100 years ago, over 100 years ago in New York City. It was one of the first yeshivos in North America, and it was just a yeshiva. And after a few years had passed, after 30 years had passed, the yeshiva decided to also open up a branch for the boys to be able to not just have their learning in the morning and then have to go to secular college in the afternoon, but to do it all together. And there was an idea that was developed called Torah Umada. Torah is, of course, we know what Torah is, and Mada is studies of the general world. And the idea of Yeshiva University is to try to integrate, put these two, we value learning Torah. Of course, the greatest gift that Hashem gave the Jewish people is the opportunity to learn Torah. And there's so much wisdom. There's so much wisdom in the world of science, in the world of arts, in the world of business. There's so much wisdom that there is to learn and so much that we could grow from. So there was an attempt, and that's what Yeshiva University is. And it's an attempt to bridge Torah with Mada and teach them together. Now, that's important on a theoretical way, in a way of how we think. It's also important in a practical way. In a theoretical way, it's important because people have to realize that if we value education and we value the things that we study, then we have to value everything that we could learn. We have to value science. Science was also a gift of Hashem. The world, the beautiful world that he gave us to study, the wisdom of mathematics, the wisdom of chemistry, that's also a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God allows himself to be revealed. Not as directly as Torah, of course. Torah is the most direct way to understand God, because it's like the book that he wrote and handed to us, right? If you're going out with a girl, I'm talking to young men. So if you're going out with a girl and you want to figure out who she is, so if you just try to, follow her around and see where she goes and what she does and what she orders when she goes to a restaurant, you have an idea of who she is. But the way to really find out who a young lady is if she tells you, this is who I am, this is what I care about, this is what makes me go, this is what makes me happy, this is what makes me sad. So Torah is exactly that. Torah is Hashem speaking directly to us. We could uncover Hashem by studying science and by studying math and studying all kinds of things. But the way Hashem says, I want to introduce myself to you, that's with the Torah that he teaches us. So the goal of YU is to provide both Torah and university studies in one campus. Now, that doesn't mean that they're mixed together entirely. The way Yeshiva University works is, I don't know if Rabbi Bengio has ever discussed the idea, but in the mornings, there's one campus where all the students are in a dormitory. Now a lot of students are at home because they're on Zoom, but otherwise there's a dormitory. And in this dormitory, everybody lives. And you have a cafeteria like every other yeshiva or university. And in the morning, everybody in Yeshiva University has a Torah learning program. And based on the different students, a student can choose different types of programs. Some programs are a little more exactly like a yeshiva, with chavrut, a lot of chavruta, and a shir only on Gemara. Other students want a more broad perspective of learning. There's a little chumash, a little halacha, a little Gemara. Other students are interested in something more academic, more like Jewish history, more ideas of Tanakh. And then there's a different program, which is the program that I spend most of my time in, which is a program for people who do not have much of a Jewish education in their background, and they want to grow in their Jewish education and in their Jewish experience. Those are 4 different divisions, and every student in Yeshiva University chooses what division of Torah learning they want to do in the mornings. That's the morning. And the Torah learning in the morning is either till 1 o'clock or till 2:30. Different divisions have different, just the morning hours are only Torah. Then in the afternoon, everybody in the whole school will spend the afternoon taking their secular college classes. And those secular college classes will be in all the different areas of university classes. So you'll have the sciences, people who want to go into medicine, or people who want to become dentists or in the medical field. You have mathematics, you have computers, you have psychology, you have English language, you have other languages, you have philosophy, you have music, you have art. All the different secular classes are given only in the afternoon. And then at night, everybody either does their homework or learns in the Beit Midrash or plays basketball or does any of the other activities. That's the basic schedule of Yeshiva University. Now, just to give a little bit of background as far as what YU is, Yeshiva University, some of you might know women from, or some girls from Chile, maybe a little older than you, who went to Yeshiva University. There are 2 schools. There's one school in the middle of Manhattan, that's for women. That's called Stern College, that's for women. And then the men part of Yeshiva University is in the top of Manhattan, and that's called Yeshiva College. So there are 2 different universities, 2 different programs entirely. So there are 2 different locations, there's 2 different places, they're a few miles apart, a few kilometers apart, 2 different places. There's the Yeshiva University for women and Yeshiva University for men. That's a little bit about how Yeshiva University works. What's important to realize, though, is Yeshiva University is not, you mentioned, Rabbi Warman, that there are many different yeshivos. But
Not
I want
a
to
rabbi,
just,
but it's fine.
okay, you just became a rabbi. That was quick and easy, right? I had to study for 4 years. You got it in 10 minutes.
Very good.
What's important for people to realize is that Yeshiva University is not instead of yeshiva. Almost every single one of our students, 90%, I think, of our students go after high school, go to learn in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. And Yeshiva University is so happy about that the students have an opportunity to learn in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, that Yeshiva University gives them a full year of college credit. I don't know how to say college credit in Spanish, but that's an important word. A full year of college, if let's say college is 4 years, so if a person learned in Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, they only have 3 years of college at Yeshiva University. So an entire year of college credit is given to a student who spends a year learning Torah and only Torah in Eretz Yisrael.
So you basically get a bachelor degree on a major, for example, in business, with 3 years in the US, and the 4th year that would be full Torah. Doesn't matter, you get the degree anyway.
That is correct. That is correct. So almost all the students go to, after high school, they go to Israel for a year, and they go to all different yeshivas, whatever yeshiva they want to learn, wherever they think they will learn best. And after a year in yeshiva, many people stay 2 years. Like I went for 2 years. After a year or 2 in Israel, or a year and a half, then they come back to Yeshiva University and they study Torah in the morning. And in the afternoon, they take their college classes that prepare themselves for whatever profession they'd be interested in studying to make a living. That's the schedule.
You were mentioning before the advantages and the disadvantages.
Yes. So the advantages and disadvantages, let's start with the disadvantages. When you're in yeshiva, everybody around you is focused on one thing. Everybody wants to grow closer to Hashem, to become a better Baal Teshuvah, right? That's what we all want to do. There's a focus that you could have without other distractions of just focusing on your learning Torah, which is an incredible advantage because you could sometimes have the ability to grow more. That's a value. There's a value of being on a secular campus, and that is that you meet all kinds of people. And you meet all different types of people, and you're exposed to all different kinds of people. Those advantages could also have disadvantages. Those advantages of other places could also be looked at in a different light. My father happened to be a professor. He's a professor at Yeshiva University. He just stopped teaching a year ago, but he also taught at Brooklyn College, which has a lot of Jews. Brooklyn is, of course, very Jewish, but it's a state college in Brooklyn, owned by the government and paid for by the government. It's much cheaper than a private university. And my father taught at Brooklyn College and at Yeshiva University. And he would come home every day and say, I don't understand why the Jews would want to spend their time at Brooklyn College when they're with people who their language isn't nice and their ideas are not nice and the way they dress is not so appropriate. And here you could have the opportunity to learn with other people who speak in a certain way that's much more appropriate, who care about the values that you care about. And my father always remarked that the difference between the experience that a Jewish man has on a secular college campus, which has a lot of challenges, and Yeshiva University, where you're completely surrounded by people who are Jewish and everything there is Jewish. So for example, at Yeshiva University, the only food that you could get in the cafeteria is kosher food. At another campus, you could find a kosher restaurant somewhere nearby. You could go somewhere else, or if you live in your home, obviously you have food from home, but the university is not kosher. University is not Jewish. The courses in Yeshiva University also basically, again, I can't say every teacher is perfect, but basically all the teachers are aware. They're not all Jewish teachers. All the rabbis, of course, are Jewish. I hope so. I am at least. And but in the afternoon, the secular classes, the business classes, let's say, the mathematics, chemistry, that's not all. The teachers are not all Jewish, but they know that they are talking to young men, or in the other women's school, young women who are all Orthodox, who all believe in Torah, who all have a value system, who all respect certain ideas, and therefore their classes respect those ideas that a Jewish person, a traditional Jewish person, would be thinking and would want to live with. So that makes the college experience very, very different. And the opportunities, the dangers of going to a secular university are much greater than somebody who would go to Yeshiva University, where the opportunity, you're with all Jews and all people who are growing in your Judaism. So there are a lot of opportunities to grow in Judaism that you don't have on a secular campus. Now, if a person just wants to be in yeshiva, I'll finish with this. If a person just wants to be in yeshiva, then that's great. And we encourage that. But if for a person who wants to study at a university, this is a way of being at a university, and a very good university. Is considered one of the top 50 or 70, I think it's one of the top 75 universities in America out of a few thousand universities. It's a very good university. It's considered a very good education, and at the same time, be in a yeshiva environment in the mornings.
You were talking as well as about the student profile, if you will. In that sense, how do you describe the students? Is modern Orthodox, if you will, Orthodox, is let's call it Balei Tshuva, wherever.
Okay.
How do you describe the students?
Okay, that's a great question. What makes Yeshiva University a little bit different than other yeshivas is that most yeshivas have a certain type of person that goes to that yeshiva. Because Yeshiva University is so big and caters to a range of people, you really have many different types of people. You have the biggest part are what's called the yeshiva program, where people want to learn Gemara most of the time. That's 2/3 of the yeshiva. And the other third is people who don't just want to do Gemara all the time, and they have very different backgrounds. There are people who come from who didn't grow up with any Jewish education. They come from very small communities where they are not Jewish, they didn't have Jewish schools. And coming to Yeshiva University is the first time that they're with other Jewish people their age. To Yeshiva University, but most of them, could you hear me? Okay, yeah. But most of them come from a background that they went to Jewish elementary school and high school. That's the majority. And there is a significant minority who didn't go to Jewish schools, but are interested in growing in Judaism. So almost everybody on campus is Orthodox, and the yeshiva itself is, of course, 100% Orthodox.
No. Okay, it's good to know, because basically there's a lot of misconceptions, or sometimes even not knowing exactly what are we talking about. So it's right. It's good to clarify some right. Subjects,
I think the best way to get a picture of what Yeshiva University can create is if you look at the wonderful products who went to Yeshiva University, Rabbi Bengio Jr. and Rabbi Jenny. So that's, when you see people like that who are intelligent, they are trained. I know Rabbi Bengio on the call with us is trained in finance. Rabbi Michael Bengio, I don't remember what he majored in. Rabbi Jenny was an expert in marketing, and he created incredible video for Yeshiva University. Ask him, he was incredible marketing and digital designer. Now I don't think he tells you about that. But he got wonderful training in marketing and in business when he was at Yeshiva University. And also, Baruch Hashem, Talmidei Chachamim who learn, who value Torah, but are able to value Torah with a certain ability to communicate with the whole world, with anybody, from any background. So even though they themselves are rabbis, but the rabbis who could talk about the football clubs, and who could talk about, we call it soccer, you call it football, who could talk about the football clubs, who could talk about what's happening in the business world, who could talk about the science behind coronavirus. And that's what the type of person that Yeshiva University wants to create. Somebody who's growing in his Judaism, who's knowledgeable in their Judaism, who's very committed to Torah and to mitzvot, but who's also knowledgeable about everything that's happening in the world and successful in their professional lives as well, because they don't have to be one or the other, not at all. They could have both together, and that's what Yeshiva University tries to provide.
There is some mothers probably looking, and some grandmothers also looking probably, and there's always a question about hospitality, if you will, dorms, social life, food, all these kind of things that for mothers are always important.
I'll tell you, it's a lot more important for the boys than for the mothers.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to ask you, Gabriel, that is also there. So to know
I'll tell you about that. Sure. So Yeshiva University has a dormitory. Almost everybody lives in the dormitory. The dormitories are rooms with 2 people in each room, and a sink, and there's a bathroom down the hall. That's shared for the whole floor. It's a dormitory like most dormitories that you find anywhere. The dormitories are, of course, there's a men's campus and the men's yeshiva, and the women is a few kilometers away, totally separate. They have totally different location. Some men like to visit the other campus, and some women like to visit the men's campus, but that's not part of the yeshiva. That's after school. That's on their own time. The yeshiva provides 3 meals a day all year long. All year long, there's always 3 meals a day in the cafeteria. Now, when a person is in the dormitory, they pay a little bit extra, and they get the meals from the yeshiva. And the cafeteria is like a restaurant. You walk in with a little card that has your money on it, and you choose whatever you want. You wanted chicken for dinner, you wanted steak for dinner, you wanted hot dogs for dinner, you want sushi for dinner, you want soup, you want salad, you make your own salad, all different kinds of, you want pasta, whatever you want, you order and you take it, and you either sit down in the cafeteria or you take it to your room. and everybody comes whenever they want, whatever. There are 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours for lunch, 2 hours for dinner, and you walk in, you sit down with your friends, and you talk about the Dvar Torah, about the Parsha. You talk about your statistics or business law class that you have next period, whatever it is that you want to talk about. Sometimes you sit down, the rabbis, the professors are sitting there, you sit and you eat with your professors, your rabbis, and that's the food there is always taken care of. Shabbos has a beautiful Shabbos program. Shabbos has also, of course, beautiful Shabbos meals with all the students coming together. And it's actually, I don't know what you'll be able to see. Now it's on Zoom, it's hard to visit, but there's an open house coming up. I think Rabbi Benjio might be able to provide the information. A Zoom open house. I don't know how do you say open house in Spanish?
I don't think that we have a word for that.
It's a day that
we know what it is because I think that we use exactly the same word.
We call it open house.
Sí,
open
house.
House. Very good, very good. So
I do actually just I do have the information. If anybody wants to talk, wants to know more about it, they can contact me later.
Okay, so that's this year. It's on Zoom, and I'm sure they'll have videos, and I'm sure they'll have videos and pictures of what it looks like on campus. The food is very good. Food is excellent. It's also important that obviously, especially for people from international students, the biggest question usually, again, this is not exactly what you're asking about, but it relates to, all the different costs that are involved in terms of the cost of a private school in America with a dormitory and food that you have to pay for. So it happens to be that's important for people to know. If you look at the number of how much Yeshiva University costs, you might have a heart attack. And that could help you make the decision, forget it, it's too much money. You should know that 80% of students, 80% of all the students receive a very, very, very significant scholarship to the university. So even though the number looks very big, when you speak to them and you say that you're interested in Yeshiva University and they talk to you practically, usually almost everybody I know, almost all of my students are paying much, 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 much less than the number that you might see on the computer screen when you
and
go
that's
to
for
the
both American and international students?
Yes, that's correct. There are very significant scholarships for South American students, for international students. It's interesting. You didn't ask this at all, but we have students from 29 countries. 29 different countries. That's a lot of countries. I don't even know if you could list off on your fingers 29 countries, but we have from 29 countries right now at Yeshiva University. There are a lot of international students. I'm not saying the majority are Americans, that's true, but there's a very significant international community, and most of them are Spanish speakers. We have a lot of students from Panama. We have a handful from Brazil, from Mexico, from Argentina. Well, Argentina actually speaks no, Brazil speaks Portuguese. I'm sorry, yes. Right? I apologize, but they understand a little bit of Spanish. So there's a lot of Latin Americans who they actually have a Latin American club. They have just the Spanish speakers who are on campus have a club just for themselves. They make each other feel good talking Spanish to each other. But I'm sure Benjio could tell you at the beginning the English was a little hard, but it improves as you go.
Well, we have a Gabriel Bloom here, that is a Chilean, that is studying now in Yeshiva University. Gabriel, ¿cómo estás?
Hola. Yo debería hablar en español, asumo.
No, I don't know, no, because the Rav is not going to understand if you speak in Spanish. So
okay.
You could speak in Spanish. You could speak in Spanish. It's okay. I don't have to understand. Whenever you have a question for me.
No. It's important you understand because we can discuss together about it.
Okay.
Sure.
We were talking about, first, how do you make the decision of going there?
Okay, so full disclaimer, I graduated as, I don't know, I assume most people know me, but I graduated from Maimonides in 2014. And I got into La Católica. I was going to study there, finance, basically comercial. And I always knew I wanted to go to Israel for a gap year to study there. So I went to Medrash Shmuel, which is, I would say, more of a right-wing yeshiva. So I was there for about a year and a half. And then I was looking into different places. I knew I couldn't go back to Chile because I wanted to keep growing. I knew I wanted to keep on having Seder in the morning. I wanted to keep on learning. And so at the end of the day, the best option available to me was Yeshiva University. So I looked into it, and yeah, it was a great choice. I actually did graduate already in January, and I still live in the city though, near YU. So
Let's describe your experience. Okay, you went there. It
for
was
sure.
easy. It wasn't easy. Being international. The New
I mean,
Yorkers have a kind of a style. Being Chilean, that is far away from everything. I don't know. All these kind of things.
definitely, yeah. So I already was used to, since I had been in Israel with many Americans, many guys from New York. You need to know that people from New York are different. They have their own shtick and they are different. However, YU is a very, very, very diverse place. In my own experience, as Rav Orlian explained, there's 4 programs. So I was in the Yeshiva program, which basically I had learning till like 3 p.m. every day. So my chavrusa, the guy that I spent most of my day with, he was from Boston. And then in the afternoon, like I had classes with, and I had many friends from like Panama that, you know, it takes you off your mind that like you're in New York and you feel like, again, you're speaking Spanish in the afternoon. So it's nice. But then again, like at night, then I learned with someone else from Brooklyn, and you get to see all these different perspectives. It's super nice. Instead of like, in my mind, I was always comparing it to Chile, which I love my friends from Chile, and I love Chile in general also. But you know, everybody comes from the same background. Everybody does the same thing at the end of the day. It's like here you have much more of a perspective of Jews everywhere, and you get to share a lot with a lot of people. So that's an incredible plus at the end of the day.
Gabriel, Rav Orlian was talking about the disadvantages of having a yeshiva and a university together, and you had the opportunity to be in Israel before. How do you describe the Torah level on this yeshiva or Gemara program in the morning?
So, full disclosure, there's many Rosh Yeshivos in YU, and there's many shiurim. I don't even know. I think there's around 30 Rosh Yeshivos. So that means each one probably has one shiur in the morning for the yeshiva program. I believe so. So there's a lot of opportunities. The shiur that I was thankful enough to join, the level was just incredible. Like people there were extremely serious, and from, you know, the morning until 3 p.m. you were in the yeshiva. It's obviously hard when you have a test and like when you have to study for something else for the afternoon, like you need to, you know, have that switch and think, okay, I'm in the yeshiva for the morning. But for the most part, the level was incredible. I mean, there's literally everything in YU. That's a fun part about it. And whatever you're looking for, whatever level of studying you are, there's something for you. That I can definitely say, that's for sure.
And the last one, in terms of social hospitality, the thing that we were describing before, how do you describe it?
No, as I said, most kids, most of them are from New York, right? But there's many kids that are not. So if you're not necessarily, oh, you're asking about like the food and the living situation.
Both.
So again, if one has an open mind and, you know, you go there to make connections, make friends, and, you know, start this new chapter of your life, then I feel like there's enough people so that you're definitely gonna have and create great friends. Even though like I already graduated, and I see a couple of friends on a daily basis, like people I learned with and people I just see around, but I keep in touch with many friends I made along the way, and it's just pretty incredible. Regarding the food situation, so I guess it's definitely good in terms of any yeshiva that I would think of. I mean, definitely comparing it to my yeshiva in Israel, it's way better. And like Rav Orlian said, like there's many choices for food always, and also you can go to, there's like 3 or 4 restaurants here in this area, and then there's also like in Midtown where you can use like the same card, the same budget that you have for food, you can use it in the restaurant. So that's pretty nice also. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the campus, the dorms are absolutely nice. They're super nice, again, comparing to like another yeshiva. Yeah, accommodations are are really not a problem at all.
Would you encourage our kids to follow your path?
Definitely. I do think that it's very important. If someone can spend time in Israel, I think it's good in order to find themselves, because there's many opportunities in YU. There's opportunities for everybody that wants to, live Judaism in any way, So I think that if one is sort of mature enough in order so that he knows sort of what life he wants to lead, I think YU is a great place. And I do think that is also a great place to find it out if one doesn't know. So I definitely would encourage people from Chile to go 100%. Yeah.
Okay, gracias, Gabriel. Orlian, regarding what Gabriel was saying, would you encourage our kids to follow that path, going to Israel before, or going to YU and then Israel? What would be your recommendation?
So my recommendation would probably be to have the opportunity to learn Torah in nothing else but Torah, to just learn Torah in a yeshiva, because at least for one point in your life, to have nothing else but learning Torah is a beautiful experience. I think it gives the person to have the ability to focus on just their connection to Hashem, just their connection to God for a little bit of their life. It gives a lot, it sheds a lot of light on how you live the rest of your life. So if a person takes a gap year, a half a year, or 9 months or 12 months to study in Israel for a year, that just will shed light on who they are as a person. It will define them. It will improve their ability to build a family, to raise children for down the road. And at some point when they realize that that's a wonderful opportunity for a year or so, then you have to go to college. So if you're going to go to college, I think the best place to go to college is a place like Yeshiva University, where you don't have to give up. There are no tests on Shabbos. There are no tests on Yom Tov. All of Sukkot, you're off for a week and a half. All of Pesach, you're off for a week and a half. Shavuot, you're off for a week. Every holiday, you're off.
Soccer games are on Sundays, I guess.
I didn't even mention that. Those are if there are any athletic students in Chile who want to join the soccer team at Yeshiva University, we have a soccer team that plays college soccer, real college soccer in the national NCAA. I don't know what you call the NCAA in Chile. Maybe Rabbi Benjio could say, but we have a basketball team that follows Shabbat and only eats kosher. We have a soccer team, we have a tennis team, we have a golf team, we have a track team, we have all the different teams that fencing. I don't know how to say fencing in Spanish. All the different college teams that you could have, and here you have the opportunity to do it, keeping Shabbat, eating only kosher, and all the games are only on after Shabbat or Sunday or Friday earlier in the day, but nothing. You could keep Shabbat and you could have an experience, not just in classes, but even the social experience, the college social experience could also be completely comfortable for an Orthodox Jew. And to have the opportunity to be able to not have to travel to a different university and to be with people who, will look, you have to be nervous if I look Jewish, if I'm wearing a kippah, do I look Jewish, do I not, what do they think of me? Here, everybody is, in the Yeshiva University, almost everybody wears a kippah, and that's what's expected. So you could be comfortable who you are, you could be comfortable in terms of your observance of the mitzvot, and you could go to college and learn Torah together. It's a very convenient, and it prepares a person for the rest of their life to live a professional life, a successful professional life, earning a good living, and at the same time, knowing how to spend their time with a little bit of learning every day, which is the goal of what we want to continue doing for the rest of our lives. Always having a little bit of Torah while doing whatever professional goals we have for ourselves.
That's absolutely great. What will be the process for applying to Yeshiva University? SAT? What is the
so for international students, they have their own admissions process. There is actually somebody, I think comes to Chile, I don't know, once a year, twice a year, Rabbi Ari Salamont. Rabbi Benjio definitely knows him. He comes to Chile at least once or twice a year. And he's actually in charge of all he does is helps the international students apply to YU. That's his job, a full-time job, helping international students. I mean, he's also in charge of France and Panama and Mexico. Doesn't just work for Chile, for the students from Chile, but students from all around the world. There's a special person in Yeshiva University who just helps them apply. What you could do is, go to yu.edu. That's it, yu.edu. And you could click apply. And you'll get all the information. You could speak to people there. You could fill in they'll call you back. You fill out the application online. And again, the most important thing to realize, two things to realize, is that Yeshiva University is not instead of Yeshiva. It's go to Yeshiva, and then after you go to Yeshiva, and you're ready to do college, this is a great way to do college in a way that you're not missing out by being a Jew, but you're growing by being a Jew in your college experience. And also remember that the money is not what it looks like on paper, because everybody's on a scholarship. Everybody's on a very big scholarship.
Sorry, there is also in the website, and I didn't know that before. There is also a postgraduate, a graduate college, a graduate university, right? So you can do an MBA, a master's degree, and other things.
Yeshiva
right?
University has a lot of advanced degrees, but that is not just Jewish students.
Okay.
The advanced degrees, they have a medical school, they have a psychology school, they have a school of social work, they have a school of education, they have a school of business, they have a school of cybersecurity, they have a school for accounting. They have a lot of, that's after college, and that's open to Jews and non-Jews, but the very high percentage is Jewish. So the Yeshiva University, that's part of why Yeshiva University has a very good name in certainly in America, in North America, because of it's a college with all the Jewish students, but then it also has connected to it a medical school and graduate schools that make it well known in the industry, that make it well known in the whole country, in the whole of North America and in the world. That's what it makes ours have a better name, which means that our students could get better jobs because they're coming from a college that people know the name.
That's very clear. I know that Rav Alan Jen is here as well. Maybe one.
I don't see him on my screen.
I saw the picture. Alan, ¿estás ahí o está la pura foto? Parece que no está también ahí. It was there, but maybe.
Oh yeah, I see his picture. Okay, yeah, he sent me a message. He said, "Nice to see you, Rabbi," on the chat. So I know he was here.
So probably it was there. Rab Jake, I don't know whether you want to say something else besides, of course, thanking Rabbi Orlian, because I think that was very clarified for all the parents and the kids.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank Rabbi Orlian for taking from his busy schedule to share about his experience, his views, and all this. For us, is very, very important for our students to know what's out there, and I think this has been very, very enlightening. Also, thank Gabriel. Thank you so much for your time and sharing a little bit here. I just want to add a few things. I think YU is it's a great shidduch for our community, for our students. I think it's a great option. As also Rabbi Orlian said, I think this doesn't replace yeshiva. You have to go, you have to learn, ideally for 1 year or 2 years. But then it's an amazing opportunity to stay within a Jewish environment, to not lose those things you gain. You know, when you go to yeshiva, what happens to our students is they go to yeshiva, they go for a year, they go for 2 years, and then they have to, juggle everything. How are they gonna, what are they gonna do? How are they gonna deal with the Universidad Católica, the Catholic, that's the name of the university here, Catholic University. How are you gonna deal with that? And that's a good university where everybody wants to go. So how are you gonna deal with that? The kashrut, they have the Avodah Zarah right in front, they don't, that's the questions we get. Can I make a bracha there? I have to go outside to eat. So all those things disappear. So I remember when I was there, my friends were telling me all the issues and, being in the right environment, and you're with, sometimes you have classmates that they're not the best influence and they do all sorts of things that you want to avoid, and you want to be a mentor, you want to build up on those gains you made, when you went to Eretz Yisrael, everything you learned in school. But then when you go to college, it's very hard to maintain that. And I think YU is an amazing place for that. I think you have to also to find yourself, to find what you want to do with, with your learning and everything. And also to, just be in an amazing environment. I think the diversity that you find in YU is amazing as well. You'll find all kinds of Jews and different ashkafas, and you'll find your way, so it's an amazing place.
I just want to add one interesting thing about Rabbi Bengio. Rabbi Bengio, again, came from your community, came to study with me, and then he kept on climbing. As Gabriel Bloom mentioned, there are about 30 different levels, which is more than any yeshiva in the world. And that's because there are more students than any of the yeshivas, certainly in Israel. Many many different shiurim, so there's so many different levels. So Rabbi Bengio started with my class, he went to a higher class, and what's interesting is that even after he moved back to Chile, he kept on listening to his rabbi from Yeshiva University, Rabbi Konigsberg, on YU Torah, which has an archive of 250,000 shiurim from YU rabbis. It's an incredible archive of a treasure of Torah, and Rabbi Bengio used to continue listening to his rabbi years after he graduated YU, based on the rabbi's shiurim on YU Torah from his rabbi, not from my shiurim, but his more advanced rabbi, as Rabbi Bengio climbed to higher and higher levels. So he continued learning from his rabbi that he had for years, even when he was in Chile on YUTorah.org. So that's a nice thing that advanced Rabbi Bengio.
I still listen to Rabbi Orlian's shiurim, so don't.
Thank you.
So thank you so much again. Thank you so much for the time. I think this has been amazing. I think it's been very, very, very enlightening for everybody. So
thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
We hope to invite you physically one day.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have loved to meet each of the personally on the each of your screens that I see in front of me. I guess we don't have time to do that. But maybe if you ever come.
Just a quick question about the coronavirus. How do you describe how the Yeshiva University react about not having classes on the campus and so on? It was prepared, it wasn't prepared?
Okay, so it happens to be that Yeshiva University switched from being a regular classroom to being all on Zoom in 1 week. It took about a week, I think, maybe less than a week. We were all completely switched to Zoom. And we continued our regular classes, but on Zoom. And it took a few days and it switched completely. Right now, I'll tell you what life is like now. Hopefully next year, when you, with the students who I'm speaking to and you would consider coming to Yeshiva University, it will be back to normal. We hope we're almost at the edge of a vaccine, hopefully. But right now, what we have is the following. We have many of the rabbis are on campus with a lot of protection, meaning everybody on campus is wearing a mask, the rabbis have a plastic shield in front of them, and they're giving class in class and also on Zoom. So right now there's 25% of the students are on campus and 75% are all around the world. When I teach from my office where I am right now in Long Island, which is right outside of New York City, I have a student in the West Coast, I have students in the North, I have students in the South, I have students all over America. My students, I usually have a few South American students, but not this semester. And they're all home right now, but I'm teaching on Zoom regularly. And I'll go in for 1 or 2 days to see the students this month. But so right now it's 25% on campus, 75% off campus, but everybody has the Zoom option. Hopefully it'll be only for the next few months.
Yeah, but it was good to know because as the world is changing clearly, at least for the last 8-9 months, the same happened to us in the school. So it's basically an experience for everybody, right?
Right. The whole world is having this experience.
Yeah.
Hashem should save us and Hashem should give us bracha. Hashem should give all of you bracha. You should all have wonderful. Hashem should give you clarity to make the right decisions that will help you grow, that will help you become, each one of you, the best person that you could be for yourselves, for your families, for the Jewish people, professionally, spiritually, and everybody should have all the brachot in the world. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
and
you,
pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you
very much. Gracias, Gabriel, también.
Wow. Seguro, un placer.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias a todos. Nos vemos la próxima semana.
Próxima semana.
Thank you.